This experience is Napa Valley wine tasting, spoiling my women friends, sitting at the table with millionaires. The narrative is tax loops, accounts offshore squares. It's not allowed.
We are live. We are live. 1 second. I'm having microphone problems. 1 second. 1 second. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Or just turn on if you can hear me. 1 second in the chat. Hold on. If you can hear me in the chat, press 1. Get my levels right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? 1 second. You can hear me? Okay. All right. Let me get my levels right. You can hear me. Hold on. What's good? What's good, y'all? What's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome to Coin Gang Ministries, the #1 home for personal development. This is ministry for the abstract mind, and it's a safe space for everybody out there that has that out-the-box philosophy. What's good, y'all? What's good? What's good, man? Man, it's such an honor and a pleasure to be in a safe space. You know, people that share the same ideals as me, that are on a quest and a thirst for knowledge. This is Coin Gang Ministries. You at the right place at the right time. You could be anywhere in the world, but you here with me, and we're going to cook tonight. Tonight is going to be great. I want to give you a heads up. They're working on my Wi-Fi, so if the stream cuts off, stay your ass right here. I'll come right back just in case we have any technical difficulties. So if we do, just let everybody in the chat know. We're going to fire right back up. Don't even trip. As I said, this is ministry for the abstract mind, and it's a safe space for everybody out there that has that out-the-box philosophy. When you come in the chat, make sure you like and you share the video. If you have babies, go ahead and keep your babies close. Love on your babies. Hug your babies, because life is short. You heard? And if you got somebody in your life, please be patient with each other. Take time with each other. Talk to each other, right? John Lennon said it best. We're just ordinary people. I want to say a shout out to people that don't support the movement. I want to let you know that I'm alive and well. I'm doing good. I'm gracefully walking 40, and it feels great. But I want to give a special shout out to the Coin Gang family, the people that understand necessary narcissism, the people that understand top shelf or nothing, the people that understand and live by value for value. But #1, those that are seekers of knowledge, men and women and child. Salute to y'all. Today, we're going to talk about the art of production. We're going to talk about living in someone else's mind. We're going to talk about the miseducation of man, past and present. We're going to talk about how normal is not natural. Things are normal, but are they natural? We're going to talk about the brand of wifey. The brand of wifey. We're going to talk about religious terrorism. And we're going to talk about a Victorian perspective. I'm going to do some preaching today. I feel it. I feel the spirit. I'm going to do some preaching today. And this message today, you're going to have to kick and scream with. You're going to have to pout about. You're going to have to go talk to your local pastor. You're going to have to tap in your manosphere scholar. You're going to have to call Andrew Tate on me for this message, because today's message is Coverture, the complicated history of the wife. And the history of the wife is so complicated that even women don't know the history of the wife. Even women don't know how things got the way they are. Even women have never heard of the term coverture. Many women haven't heard of the doctrine of separate spheres. Many women are not aware of the etymology of the word wife and where it comes from. Many men don't know how they became the head of the household. They think it's from a divine supernatural source. But is it true though? Because it's normal, you've been hearing it so long, but is it natural though? Right? Is it natural? Can we pinpoint where all this stuff comes from? Of course, this is Coin Game. Our conversation today is Coverture, the complicated history of the wife. I want to say I appreciate any cash apps or super chats ahead of time. I'm going to stay locked in and in the zone. So y'all do your thing in the chat. You know what I'm saying? We're going to focus on this food. All right. The way that the world looks, we think is natural. But the world operates based on what's normal, right? But it's not natural. We live, and the matrix is based on what we believe, okay? All of our worldview from the West comes from this region right here. What you are looking at is ancient Mesopotamia, okay? This is where our entire belief system comes from. Our origins, of the human origins, the way that we see the world, the religions, everything comes from a Mesopotamian perspective. How we get married is a Mesopotamian perspective. How we marry or what we think of women is a Mesopotamian perspective. Huh. How are we American but have a Mesopotamian perspective? We think it's European, but it's actually Mesopotamian. The building blocks of Western civilization is based on this region right here. This region is very unique because the history, folklore, mythology, culture, and the laws from this region have shaped the entire world, specifically the Western world that you and I live in. About 2350 BC, the world's first recorded marriage takes place. But what's interesting about this marriage is it's separate from the Abrahamic religions. The first recorded marriage in history is not Abrahamic. The first recorded marriages in history have nothing to do with Islam, Judaism, or Christianity. How is that possible? How is that possible? Because I thought that marriage comes from God. Well, based on history, that's a problem. Because the first recorded marriage is not from the Abrahamic religions. It's from pagans. Pagans, those outside of the Abrahamic faith, record the first marriage. Now, these are not people that believe in Jesus or Yahweh. This is very interesting because we are taught that marriage comes from God, our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but that ain't true. Like I said, I'm gonna do some preaching today. We're gonna do some reading today. So buckle up, y'all. Origins of marriage. The practice of marriage existed long before Christianity was ever created, before Judaism was created, and before Zoroastrianism. I can't say that. Zoroastrianism. And most all religious systems, marriage was created by pagans. I said marriage was created by pagans. I said marriage was created by pagans. It's not a Christian religious institution. So in theory, the author or authorized practice of marriage belongs to the ancient pagan cultures. This presents quite a dilemma. I bet it would. This presents quite a dilemma for the modern world, for the modern Christian, or for those who stand by the word of God as to what is not allowed. It also provides an open window for permissive requirements, restrictions, rituals, allowances, and who or what may marry who or what. The concept of marriage predates Christianity and the other Abrahamic religions, Judaism and Islam, which share a common origin and common values. Marriage is very ancient, dating back beyond recorded history, and was practiced by all people of many cultures, ethnicities, and belief systems across all continents. The prevalence of the concept of marriage derived from a time when culture among humankind evolved from early man, hunter-gatherer, to agriculture and pastoralism, which occurred about 10,000 years ago. Originally, marriage was a private binding contract between clans, tribes to form an alliance, thereby increasing the tribe's chances for survival in war against their rivals. A dowry was given by each clan to seal the deal. Marriage was contractual, considered a passage of property between these clans as a symbol of intention to honor the agreement being sealed. Property took many forms: cattle, land, children, and whatever may have been considered to be great value in those times. In the United Kingdom, a requirement for a public announcement in a Christian parish was introduced by the Roman Catholic Church in 1215. This set the precedent for marriage as recognized by the Christian community. But what did we just learn here? That marriage does not come from the church. The Roman Catholic Church adopted the institution or concept later. So those that say, oh, Adam and Eve were married, that's folklore. That's mythology. Marriage does not come from Christianity. It does not come from Islam, and it does not come from Judaism. In fact, marriage comes from the people that we are taught to demonize, who are the pagans, who we associate with devil worship. Ain't that interesting? Now, I started off saying that normal is not natural. The fact that we are taught to demonize anything pagan, but yet the concept of marriage comes from pagan. Pagan simply means anything outside of the dominant religions. It is a term labeled on those that wouldn't convert. It is the term put on people that are into astrology, into numerology, right? It is the term that is used for those that are considered heretics, yet they're traditions of pagans, right, are what the modern religions borrowed from, and they just killed the pagans off. So before we move forward, let's be clear. The original marriage was not part of church. They adopted the concept later. The first recorded marriage in history are by pagans. The origins of marriage is not a religious one, nor does it have anything to do with the God of the Abrahamic-based faith systems. It exists long before organized religions, which by Christian standards means that it is pagan. In fact, Christianity borrowed and incorporated into their ceremonies, rituals, beliefs, and teachings many pagan rites and rituals so that pagans would convert more readily and easily to Christianity. Of course, they did not. They were forced by torture and other means of extracting misery and suffering, or just simply killed. Hold on, That is a very powerful, powerful paragraph. Did y'all hear what we just read here? I said we live in a world where things are normal, but things aren't natural. Our whole concept of marriage, first of all, was borrowed from the people we demonize. You know those tarot card readers that you call devils? Those astrologists that you call devils? Those psychics and clairvoyants and mediums that you call devil and spooky? Those are pagans. They came up with the concept of marriage. Let's read that paragraph again. That's very powerful. The origins of marriage is not a religious one, nor does it have anything to do with the God of the Abrahamic-based faith systems. It existed long before organized religions, which Christian standards means that it is pagan. In fact, Christianity borrowed and incorporated into their ceremonies, rituals, beliefs, and teachings many pagan rites and rituals so that pagans would convert more readily and easily to Christianity. Of course, if they did not, they were forced by torture and other means of extracting misery and suffering, or just simply killed. In modern times in the United States, before a legal marriage ceremony can be formed, one must obtain a marriage license from government authorities. When a legally married couple seeks a divorce, they must go before a judge to have the marriage annulled. Ministers and priests do not issue legally binding marriage licenses, nor do they have legal authority to grant a divorce. The religious concept of marriage has nothing to do with the legal concept. Church and state are completely separate in the case of institution of marriage, but I thought marriage comes from the divine. That's a real interesting thing, that legal marriage and religious marriages are different. Early marriage was born of ancient societies' need to secure a safe environment in which to breed, handle the granting of property, rights, and protect their bloodlines. In fact, ancient Hebrew law required a man to become the head of a deceased brother's widow. But even in these early days, marriage was much about love and desire as it was social and economic stability. In its roundness, the engagement ring, a custom dating back to ancient Rome, representing the ring around the god Saturn. Did you ever ask what the wedding ring symbolized? Did you ever think about it? Now remember, the concept of marriage in itself is pagan. Okay? The ring on the ring finger symbolizes the ring around Saturn. First of all, how did they even know that Saturn had a ring around it? Do y'all hear what's happening here? Did you ever think about why you wear a wedding ring? And we're about to find out why it's on that finger. But the wedding ring symbolizes the ring around Saturn. But the pagans are supposed to be devil worship. If you are a believer, the pagans are your enemies. If you are a believer, the pagan is your enemy. But yet we get the concept of marriage from the pagans. And the wedding ring that we use symbolizes the ring of Saturn. In its roundness, the engagement ring, a custom dating back to ancient Rome, representing the ring around the god Saturn, is also believed to represent eternity and an everlasting union. The circle 360 degrees represents a never-ending eternity. In some ancient art, you will find a snake eating its tail. Again, symbolism for transformation and eternity, never-ending. It was once believed a vein or nerve ran directly from the ring finger of the left hand to the heart. Now you know why you wear the ring finger where it's at. Whether you are in astrology or not, if you are a man and you buy a woman a wedding ring, you are astrologist. Whether you believe in astrology or not, if you are a woman that accepts a wedding ring from a man, you are into astrology. Uh-oh. Y'all caught up? Y'all good? You see what's happening here, right? Whatever we think is normal is not natural. And our entire identity, remember, right? Our entire identity is from Mesopotamia. Okay? Mesopotamia. All right? Many other modern day marriage traditions have their origins in these ancient times. Newlyweds are said to have aided fertility by drinking a brew made by honey during certain lunar phases, and it is this tradition from which we derive the origins of the word honeymoon. Let's take that from the top. All right? Many other modern day marriage traditions have their origins in these ancient times. Newlyweds are said to have aided fertility by drinking a brew made from honey during certain lunar phases, and it is this tradition from which we derive the origins of the word honeymoon. Y'all going on your honeymoon? Were you going on your honeymoon? Y'all peep that? You know why that's important? Because if marriage has its origins with pagans, right? And if marriage has its origins in paganism, right? Then how do you know the way that our relationship dynamic is correct? Because Abrahamic religions deal with the male specifically. One of the attributes of pagan religions is goddess worship. So if marriage comes from pagans, and pagans have male and female deities, then in pagan traditions, the female is not subservient to the male. Ooh. I'm simping. Ooh. How do we know that in pagan traditions, the female is not subservient to the male? How do we know this? They left carvings. They left evidence of the world that they used to live. If you notice the figurines, if you screenshot this, look at the dates and notice they're all naked. Now, in our times, we look down on the female's nakedness. Yet we run towards it, but then we demonize it at the same time. We have a hatred for female nakedness, right? And we give it language. We call it God. We call it so many other derogatory terms. But those derogatory terms did not exist in ancient times. And we tend to think that sexuality, in the way that we understand it, has always been the norm on the planet, and it is not. Look at the Venus of Haliphels. That's 35,000 years ago, naked. Every image and figurine naked. Look at them. In pagan traditions, female deities play a huge role on the god pantheon. In Abrahamic religions, the female is missing from the story. Father, son, even the devil is a man. The devil's angels is a man, right? But all throughout nature, we see the female human create, and we see the female animal create. Then how the hell would the female be missing from the story? In fact, if the Virgin Mary has the ability to give birth to God himself, wouldn't that also make her a god? The fact that we don't revere even the Virgin Mary in the story of giving birth to the Christ is interesting. How do we minimize that role? This woman, if you are a believer in this, gave birth to God, but she's not God. If you believe that an angel came to her womb and placed a seed inside of her belly, a supernatural seed, wouldn't she have to be a supernatural vessel in order to house such a power? Listen to what I said. For a supernatural power to come out the woman, wouldn't her vessel need to be a supernatural power to even hold it? So Mary is able to carry baby Jesus, but she's just a regular chick, huh? See, in the Abrahamic faiths, the woman is missing. Why? Because the woman fell throughout history, and we'll get into that in a second. If you with me, press 1. If you're having a good time so far, press 1, just so I know you out there. If this is your first time here, welcome. We welcome you. We appreciate you. And understand that over here at Coin Gang, we will go anywhere that knowledge takes us. We are here to learn. We are here to go, we are here to think, and we are here to share. Okay? So I'm sharing what I found on my knowledge journey. And what I found is that we've been lied to about the role of the woman. And that lie has an effect on male psychology, female psychology, and it has a big effect on the children, because the children don't really understand who mama is in history. See, the woman is missing from history. This is why these babies is so disrespectful. Because when they go to school, they don't see their mother in history outside of under a male's covering, quote unquote. But when this art was created, there was no male covering. A male didn't cover the woman. Look at all the regions these Venus figurines were located. all throughout the ancient world. Why don't the manosphere know this? Why doesn't the pastor know this? That there is figurines of the female body that goes back 35,000 years. They're in museums throughout the entire planet. Why don't the babies know this? Why don't the babies know that ancient cultures revered female nakedness? In pagan traditions, they tell the woman takes the clothes off. In Abrahamic religions, the woman puts the clothes on. In Abrahamic faiths, the male is fascinated by female sexuality, but he also hates that he's fascinated by female sexuality. So he's in constant chaos over the sexuality of the woman. Should I look? Shouldn't I look? Should I look? Shouldn't I look? Should I look? Shouldn't I look? The male is in constant back and forth about female sexuality. What should I do? Should I look or should I create legislation and laws around it? Should I shame her? Should I tell her that her vagina is sacred? The male only says that to control it in Abrahamic faiths. But in pagan traditions, nakedness of the woman was elevated and revered and worshipped. Again, these figurines can be found throughout the entire ancient world, from Spain to Iraq, to Egypt, to Greece, Turkey, all over the planet, before the Abrahamic religions conquered the pagan. The pagan had male and female deities side by side in their mythology. Why? Because we are both. Part of our psychology is male. Part of our psychology is female. How could that not be? We have a father, we have a mother. So when you're creating your mythology, you're going to create it in balance. The Abraham religion is out of balance because there's no woman. How do you have a God pantheon with no woman, but yet mother is the food source for the child? A baby doesn't come out the mother's womb and pray. It goes right to the mother's nipple. It is not prayers that sustain the child's life. It is the nourishment of the mother. So why would the woman be missing from the mythology or the folklore or the religion? Why? That makes no sense. We'll talk about that in a second. The exaltation of Inanna. This is very interesting. Without you, no destiny is determined. To run, to escape, to quiet, to pacify are yours, Inanna. To open up roads and paths, a place of peace for the journey, a companion for the weak are yours, Inanna. Inanna. To keep paths in ways in good order, to shatter earth and to make it firm are yours, Inanna. To destroy, to build up, to tear out, and to settle are yours, Inanna. To turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man are yours, Inanna. Wait, what? What? Hold on. To destroy, to build up, to tear out, and to settle are yours, Inanna. To turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man are yours, Inanna. Who is saying this? Induhana. 2240 BC. That's 4,000 years ago. Who the hell is this person? Because they are exalting a god. Wait a minute. Hold on. To destroy, to build up, to tear out, and to settle are yours, Inanna. To turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man are yours, Inanna. These are words from Inanna 4,000 years ago. Who the hell is Inanna? And Inanna, a 23rd century BC author and priestess. Position, high priestess of Akkadian Empire. Noble works, exaltation of Inanna and other temple hymns. Father, Sargon of Akkad. Basically, this is Sargon the Great. Empire, Akkadian Empire. Languages, spoken Akkadian and Old Sumerian. Noble works, exaltation of Anna and other temple hymns. Wait, you mean this right here? Wait a minute. I'm confused. I'm confused. Oh, Inanna. Okay. Inanna. Okay. Inanna. Cool. Confused, y'all. Because first off, this is 4,000 years old, right? And for the woman to play such a subservient role like we're led to believe, how come this priestess poetry is so important? And history preserved it. So you mean to tell me women was making an impact in writing 4,000 years ago? And she's exalting a female deity. Without you, no destiny is determined. To run, to escape, to quiet, and to pacify are yours, Inanna. To open up roads and paths, a place of peace for the journey, a companion for the weak are yours, Inanna. To keep paths and ways in good order, to shatter earth, and to make it firm are yours, Inanna. To destroy, to build up, to tear out, and to settle are yours, Inanna. To turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man are yours, Inanna. And this comes from the high priestess. These are words of the high priestess of the Akkadian Empire. Her father is Sargon the Great. Who is Inanna, born 2285 BCE and died in 2250 BCE. Inanna is the first poet and author known by name. Her mother was the high priest of the moon, and her father is Sargon of Akkad, or Sargon the Great. Her work motivated and inspired people to make prayers and hymns for all kinds of churches. Her writings even inspired the person to write the Hebrew Bible. Wait a minute, a woman? A woman? So the high priest is writing poetry, the high priestess is writing poetry to a female deity, and then a female was inspired the person to write the Hebrew Bible? She is the daughter of a very important person in history, Sargon the Great. Sargon was a very, very, very powerful man. Sargon had an empire. Sargon also worshipped Inanna, a female deity. The woman isn't subservient in these times. What happened? This is the Akkadian Empire. This is the lands conquered and ruled by Sargon the Great. A little more on Inanna. Because she was many things to many people, she held many titles. As the goddess of the heavenly upper world, she was known as the Lady of Heaven, the Queen of Heaven, the ruler of the heavens, the goddess of the moon, and the shining one, the torch of heaven and earth, the mother of all deities, the leader of hosts, and possessor of the tablets of life's records. As the goddess of the earthly middle world, she was called the Great Mother, the Great Goddess, the bestower of strength, the light of the world, the opener of the womb, the producer of life, the creator of the people, guardian of the law, righteous judge, framer of all decrees, forgiver of sin. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Something is not right. Something's not right. Because surely no one would hide nothing like this from us, right? These characteristics of a female deity that we are reading about in the ancient world that seems to be something that we don't discuss much, right? No one would hide nothing like this from us, right? Because surely if a woman or a female characteristic, a deity, was revered like this, we would know because we got babies, we have daughters. We want to share this kind of things with our daughters, right? Or no? Interesting. We might have to take that from the top because that was a mouthful, okay? Because she was many things to many people. She held many titles. As the goddess of the heavenly upper world, she was known as the Lady of Heaven, the Queen of Heaven, the ruler of heavens, the goddess of the moon, the shining one, the torch of heaven and earth, the mother of all deities, the leader of hosts and possessor of the tablets of life's records. As the goddess of the earthly middle world, she was called the Great Mother, the Great Goddess, the bestower of strength, the light of the world, the opener of the womb, the producer of life, the creator of people, guardian of the law, righteous judge, framer of all decrees, forgiver of sins, and lawgiver. Goddamn, they took everything about this female deity and gave it to Jesus Christ. This is the characteristics that people say that Jesus is. And she is a story that existed 2,000 years from the historicalization of Yeshua ben Yosef, or what you know as Jesus Christ. This existed 2,000 years before that. As the goddess of physical love, she was known as the goddess of love and the goddess of the evening. The goddess of war, she was called the guardian of the law and order, the lady of victory, lady of sorrows and battles, and the lady of battles and victory. The goddess of mystery, the mysterious underworld, she's known as the source of the oracles and prophecy, and the lady of vision. If society knew this, there would be no male telling a woman to submit. The reason that the male can speak this way is because it's the trickle-down effect of the Abraham religions, which removes the woman. What happened? How does something like this exist for thousands of years and then all of a sudden, boom, it's over? What happened? What happened? Phallic worship happened. See, there was already fertility deities for the male. The problem is the male took over the power. He began to remove his better half from the story because the male had other plans. He no longer wanted to rule side by side with his partner. He wanted all the glory. He wanted all the shine. Because they ruled for thousands of years, both playing an important role in the psychological development of the world. But the man got tired of that. Now you enter phallic worship. And this is what we are under right now. Phallic worship. Okay? So I am going to read you something real quick. I'm going to try my best to skip. There's some images, and I don't know if I'll get flagged if I show them, but phallic worship is a real thing. Okay? It's a real thing, and many of us adhere to it without even knowing. We are in love with the phallic. Religion has always been one of humanity's most curious phenomena, from the pious who deprived themselves of all sexual pleasure to the frantic and bizarre sex festivals of the ancients. Sex and spirituality have always been profoundly intertwined. Pornography and religion evolved side by side. The earliest forms of pornography, from Venus statues to cave art, were closely tied with religious rites, as early humanity stood in awe of the wonders of nature. Fertility must have been mesmerizing to prehistoric humanity. Peoples who didn't understand scientific concepts like sperm and ovum, fertilization, and evolution. Everything was clinical. Menstrual periods came in cycles. Babies perceptively came in cycles. The season came in cycles. And even all life from birth until death was sensed as one grand cycle, the never-ending circle of creation and destruction. Part of our need to worship sex and sexuality is baked right into the psychology of human existence. It speaks to our reverence and awe for the unspeakably beautiful process that life that gives rise to life. In today's world, we chuckle at the notion that there might be a religion dedicated to the worship of women's asses, and that is called adonatology. Okay, they're going to word for you. Adonatology, and that's the worship of women's asses. And it's interesting because isn't that what hip hop is all about? Twerking, right? That's actually a thing. Twerking is adonatology. But we seem to forget this is nothing new. There's also a long-standing human tradition, for better or worse, of worshiping the male penis. The penis worship, called Phallicism, has a long, rich history and can teach us much about humanity itself. The uncovering nature of history of phallic worship and the worship of other sexualized body parts speaks volumes about the collective psychology of humankind. And by exploring that history, we may be able to elucidate some of our deepest motivations, making them transparent to us so we can appreciate humanity through its cultural expressions as it is. Why do we worship the penis or the ass? because it's ours, because it's part of us, and by extension, it's part of our story. Bodies conjure up a world of feelings within us, good or bad. The phallic worship of prehistory. Worshipping the penis probably began around the time when people first started worshiping statues like Venus of Willendorf, and people were small penis-looking charms to pay their respects and wish for fertility to the male member and its respective gods. This is a penis carving that's 6,000 years old. I'm gonna skip past it because I don't know. Right? The beginnings of subtle phallic worship. As human tamed their surroundings and became more skilled at construction, they began to worship penises in some rather novel ways. Let me stop right here. For any of you that are curious about the bro code, I'm answering your question right now. For any of you that wonder why there's a thing among bros, it's because of phallic worship without even knowing. It's not no fun unless the homies can have some. It's all about the bros. Why? Phallic worship. Even males in ancient time wore phallic charms. See, you don't know how the world you live in came to be. These little nuances and things that we do have an origin. So there is a code among men, and it's the code of the phallic. Take it or leave it. As human tamed their surroundings and became more skilled at construction, they began to worship penises in some rather novel ways. This moved from beyond the usual etchings, carvings, and castings to much larger, in-depth structures, one that inspired both the awe and envy of onlookers. Men have always wanted to make their penises as large as possible. Most of us who live in modern cities don't think of the skyscraper as a phallic object, but a phallic object it is. In fact, most of the first tall buildings of pre-modern were erected as testaments to the various fertility gods. They bear an uncanny resemblance to penises accordingly. This is in Turkey. You see that, right? That's Turkey. When you're looking at a skyscraper, that's phallic worship. When you're looking at the obelisk in Washington, D.C., that's phallic worship. When you're looking at the Eiffel Tower, that is phallic worship. We are mirroring how we thought in the ancient world. The difference is we've renamed the gods and the deities, but it's still embedded in our everyday life, especially among men. So if you are a woman trying to understand a male, understand this. On a primal level, the male will never betray the oath of the phallic. When you're listening to all these male podcasters, they are adhering to the phallic cult. That's why they speak in general about each other. Men this, men that. They speak for guys they don't even know and cape for guys they don't even know and go hard for guys they don't even know. Why? It is the allegiance of something to something very, very old and ancient, and is the allegiance to the phallic. So at what point are we just copying old habits? And at what point are we consciously or not continuing the practice of phallic worship in our structures? From the Paleolithic to the Neolithic to ancient times, and even the sternly religious Middle Ages, then onward into modernity, We stare at phallic-inspired works of art every single day and never really think about it twice. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Buildings, especially in ancient history, didn't need to be tall, but height often served the dual purpose of providing phallus worship in hope of attaining the vitality believed to be delivered by the hands of the various phallic gods. And as a display of power, these structures don't yield any additional defensive properties, so much as they intimidate nearby cultures into believing that you have the phallic god on your side. Why do they keep building structures high? What's it for? It's to intimidate other cultures, and it is a ode to the fertility gods in the phallic cults. Egyptian phallic worship. The inhabitants of ancient Egypt had a fascinating religion of many gods and goddesses, representing many aspects of daily life, and their lore spoke to the specifics of these deities, which anthropomorphized the human experience, making concrete what we think, feel, sense, and experience in our lives. Min was the name of the fertility god of ancient Egypt and was also considered the lord of the eastern desert. Min is also invariably depicted with an erect penis, usually in one hand, with a flail in the other, suggesting that he might have been taught to be into some kinky BDSM. Min was the personification of the male penetrative act and male fertility and was worshipped as much. Men basically always had a hard-on and wasn't afraid to show it, be it in art, sculptures, or inscriptions, as can be seen below. Okay. Usa was the ancient Egyptian lord of the underworld, the king of the dead. We know him today by his Latinized name, Osiris, and this god was actually adopted by the ancient Egyptians, likely from Syria. While Osiris wasn't often shown with his huge phallic that we might associate with a phallic or a male fertility god, Osiris' backstory definitely involves some unusual penis worship, and he was probably the Syrian fertility god. Osiris had a brother named Set, and the two were always fighting. Set entrapped Osiris Set entrapped Osiris and ended up killing him, but not so fast. Osiris' wife located the body, dismembered it, and took the phallus of the corpse to have sex with herself. She conceived a son, and his name was Horus. While Osiris wasn't literally always pictured with a massive boner like Min was, he was still a phallic deity in Egypt for a very long time. I have to skip past the picture. Okay. Ancient Greeks, Priapus and Pan, both gods of fertility who were rather well endowed. They would eventually leave us with a plethora of art in the form of paintings, drawings, carvings, and more, featuring these two figures and their usually large, cumbersome penises. Properous kinds of looks, well, like you'd expect a Greek god to look, only with one conspicuous part of the body standing out and sticking up all the time. I gotta skip past the picture. Okay. Then there was Pan, also featured with a similarly large member. Pan was an interesting character, looking sort of like the Christian vision of Satan, which was heavily borrowed from Greek mythology. Sporting a pair of horns, a nasty, snarling, beastly face, and goat legs. Pan looked like a character out of an adventure movie and was born of his father Hermes, who himself was an unusual god. It is said that Hermes was just an infant when he decided to steal all of Apollo's cattle and make hooves backward so they couldn't walk right and thus couldn't be tracked. That's Pan with the goat, and you know what he's doing. So, of course, Pan would be the bizarre offspring of the prankster. This is what I mean about how modern religions borrow from the pagan traditions, because the devil has characteristics like Loki. Jesus Christ had the characteristics of Inanna, and even Pan, right? He has the characteristics of what people call Satan. Pan lived in the woods. He began as a god conceived of the 100% goat with no human parts, but the conception of him evolved over time. Eventually, the Greeks pinned a massive penis on him. Both Pan and Hermes were phallic deities, and they were worshipped as such. Hermes was the original phallic god. Among other things, he was considered to lord over. The penis was a big one, pun intended. Properus, on the other hand, was the god of fertility, and he enjoyed a huge surge in popularity later on in history with the rise of the Roman Empire, a comparatively much more masculine culture than ancient Greeks. That's a picture of an orgy right there. Contemporary phallic worship. You may think we stopped worshiping the male member, but have we really? Just because we no longer erect huge statues that obviously resemble penises, does that mean we don't incorporate phallic objects into our everyday life? I'm not so sure. The fact that big dick energy is a colloquialism speaks volumes about our lingering obsession with penises. It's phallic worship for the postmodern era. And don't get me started on the weird pissing contest rocket ship battle between billionaires going right now with the space race for consumerism. That was the Blue Origin that went into space. You see the shape. Okay. Now, what makes phallic worship interesting is because phallic worship is the reason why you have a male Allah. Okay? It is the reason why you have a male Yahweh. It is the reason why you have a male Allah, Yahweh, Jesus. Why are they all dudes? As a woman that's in the faith, you never asked yourself, where's the women? As a woman that is in the faith, you have never asked yourself, why are all the books of the Bible written by dudes? Why is the man, God, a dude? Even the devil is a dude. The angels that come to men are dudes. You never asked yourself that? And the role that you play in the religion is such a subservient role to everything. You never ask yourself this. Never? Interesting. So what we just was reading was phallic worship, right? And phallic worship is so powerful because it's how we see the world. A man this, a woman this, a man this, a woman this. Every single thing about the woman is spoken of from a subservient point of view. And we interpret and we process the woman just physically. We say the male is physically stronger than the woman, therefore he should have dominion over the woman. But what we know is the real power is unseen forces. Electricity, magnetism, elements on our planet have more control over our physical environment than we do. We pull from the unseen to draw strength. Physical power isn't the only form of power. You also have mental power. Right? A bigger, stronger person can subdue me. But I can think mentally control this individual though. The phallic worship is all over the ancient world after the woman falls, after there was assault on paganism, even in the areas of Mecca. You have Alat, mother goddess, the sun. You have Al-Manat, goddess of faith. And you have Al-Azuzah, the morning star. Idols were the center of worship. Alat was a pagan idol from Arabia and one of the idols in Mecca before Muhammad. The Arabians called Aphrodite by the name Alat, according to Herodotus, the ancient historian. Muhammad turned those idols into the daughters of Allah and turned Huba, the highest ranking of 360 god worshipped in the Kaaba by the Quraysh tribe, into the god of the Quran. Alat, in all of her three forms, was influenced by Banat, which were the three daughters of Baal. What we are seeing, everybody, is that the female exists in godhood in the ancient world. Why don't we know that? We don't know that because she was wiped out of history. When the Abrahamic religions took over, the people that wind up following these faiths didn't volunteer. They were dominated. They were killed off. We're going to find out how come Alat is not part of the Islamic world now, and why is the woman in that position? So even in the Quran, even in the Arab world, same thing. Peep this, y'all. Such are the Quranic accounts of the destruction of idols. It appears that what Abraham objected to was his folks' addiction to false gods who could not eat or speak. To us, this does not constitute so serious an offense as to ruse one of the iconoclastic fury. However, the Quran does not mention if, beyond striking his folks' idols behind their back, Ibrahim waged any full-fledged jihad against his idolatrous kinsmen. That was left to the Prophet of Islam, who in his jihad against his kinsmen destroyed the idols in and around the Kaaba and signaled the event as a permanent legacy for the Mahajids. If for any Arab-speaking people, I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. All right. Question: what are the idols they're destroying? What do you think? When the Prophet Muhammad is going out converting and destroying temples and destroying statues, what do you think they are? Take a guess. According to the account given by biographers of the Prophet, on reaching Mecca, he mounted his camel, Al-Qaza, and proceeded towards the Kaaba. On reaching there, he saluted the famous black stone with his staff and made 7 circuits around the sacred building. Then, pointing with his staff to the idols one by one, he commanded them to be hewn down. The huge idol of Habu stood in front of the temple. As the Prophet's followers attacked it with pickaxes, the image fell down with the crash. The Prophet celebrated its fall by shouting a verse from the Quran: "Truth have come and falsehood gone, for falsehood verily vanisheth away." What is the statue that fell? This was not at all. The destruction of Hubal was followed by the destruction of all the pictures decorating the walls of the temple. An announcer was asked to go down the streets of Mecca shouting a proclamation: "Whoever believeth in Allah, let him not leave his house any image whatsoever." that he doth not break into pieces. The fury of idol breaking was unleashed in the city. What do you think the idols that they're breaking? In the next 2 weeks, the prophet dispatched his armed squads to all places in the neighborhood with the express command to destroy the images as also their shrines. Khalid destroyed the fane of Al-Uzza at Nakla. Amir smashed the image of Sawa, worshipped by the tribe of Hadal. Al-Manat was destroyed at Koad. The particular work of destruction was entrusted to a tribe of Media who had been specially attached to this deity. This was the prophet's way of testing their zeal for Islam. Who are the idols? When they are smashing the pictures and the temples and the statues, they are erasing the female from the picture. The female cannot be a part of the creation story. In the Abrahamic faith, it's male, then female. But in the ancient world, it was man and woman. Woman and man, side by side. They are destroying the temples that had any feminine reverence. They took the woman out of the story, not just in the Torah, not just in Christianity. They took the woman out of the story in Islam too. Mm-hmm. Murr's description of the destruction of the image of Alat. Hold on. Remember who Alat is. Alat was a pagan idol from Arabia, one of the idols in Mecca before Muhammad. That's a woman. What did it say? Murr's description of the image of Mir's description of the destruction of the image of Alat, worshipped by the Thaqif tribe of Taif, is particularly touching. Who's Alat? Alat was a pagan idol from Arabia and one of the idols in Mecca before Muhammad. Oh, they destroyed the image of Alat. Following close upon the conquest of Mecca, the prophet had besieged the city of Taif, but the siege had to be raised because the heroic resistance of the Thaqafites. But when every surrounding tribe started professing Islam and organizing raid upon raid against them, the Thaqafites decided to offer submission. Their attachment to their goddess, Alat, however, was too strong to be renounced so easily. Huh? These are men now. Are they simps? These are men in the ancient world before Islam takes over. What did it say? Their attachment to their goddess Allat, however, was too strong to be renounced so easily. Already they had killed one of their own chiefs, Urwa, who was professed Islam on his own, would have all his fellow citizens follow in his footsteps. But harassed and exhausted by Islamic attacks from all sides, they at least sent out a deputation of 6 chiefs who pleaded with the Prophet for retaining the temple of Allah for another 3 years after professing Islam. So these men of the ancient world have a deep connection with this goddess Allah. But y'all are telling me that the woman is submissive by nature throughout history, and you are capping. You have to bring your library to the conversation. Don't bring no stats. Don't bring no data. Don't bring no statistics. Bring your paleontology. Bring your archaeology. Bring your anthropology. Bring your mythology. Bring your folklore. As was to be expected, the prophet rejected the plea. Thereafter, they prayed for a respite for 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, successively with tearful supplication. The prophet was stubborn in his refusal, declaring that Allah could not coexist with Allah for a single day. Who's Allah again? Allah was a pagan idol from Arabia and one of the idols in Mecca before Muhammad. The Arabians called Aphrodite by the name of Allah, according to Herodotus, the ancient historian. The Prophet Muhammad could not let the woman coexist side by side with Allah, because in order to subjugate the woman, you have to erase her from history and make it seem like the order that we live by is a commandment from God himself in the heavens. But in order to do that, there can't be no woman there. Mm-hmm. The only concession the Takafites could get was that they were not required to destroy the image of Allah with their own hands. Al-Maraha, a clansman to Urwa, and Abu Sayan, the Qurayshite leader, volunteered to perform the task. Al-Maruha, wielding a pickaxe and surrounded by a guard of his relatives, and amid the cries of the wailing woman with his own hands, hewed the image to the ground. Even in Islam, the reason why you have what you have is because they destroyed the images of the woman. Now they are in control of what the woman wears, how she talks, who she sleeps with. Her entire reality is filtered to what men think and what men want. Ladies and gentlemen, that is phallic worship. That even the devil is a man. And in phallic worship, the sole purpose of the woman is to be the helpmeet of the man. Yet, we have figurines that are 35,000 years old, and we have a god pantheon that includes the woman, and the woman is not subservient to the man until the rise of Abrahamic religions. If you with me, press 1. If you in the building and you enjoying yourself, go ahead and press 1 for me. Go ahead and get them likes up for me. I want y'all to understand wherever you are, this is not happening. You know what I'm saying? This is not happening other places. I need y'all to understand that. What we are experiencing right now makes us the tallest tree in the forest. Where we are going, ladies and gentlemen, nobody else is going with us. It's just us. The tallest trees in the forest, those students on the path of knowledge of self, those students on the path, eager to go wherever knowledge takes us, man. Come on now. Enter a very, 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 very important person to the story. Emperor Constantine. Constantine. I want to show those that profess Christianity. I mean no disrespect, you know what I mean, in your faith walk, but we're just dealing with history. I need you to understand that the reason why you are a Christian is because Constantine makes Christianity a state-sanctioned religion. The reason why that's critical is because Constantine is the emperor of Rome. In 325 comes the Nicene Creed, right? Now, we are far, far away from this because we're now at 325. We are even far, far away from the high priest and Inanna and the exaltation of Inanna. We are far from that. Now we are during the reign of Emperor Constantine. If you follow Paul of the Bible, the New Testament, this is because of the Emperor Constantine. He makes Christianity a state religion. They developed the Nicene Creed. We believe in one God. Look at the Phallic worship. We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, of that is seen and unseen. We believe in one Lord, Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, eternal begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, of one being with the Father. Through him all things were made. For us, for our salvation, he came down from heaven. By the power of the Holy Spirit, he became incarnate from the Virgin Mary and was made man for our sake, was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered death and was buried. On the third day, he rose in accordance with Scripture. He ascended into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. What you are looking at is the Nicene Creed. What makes the Nicene Creed interesting is because in order for the Nicene Creed and Christianity to spread, something has to happen first. Now, if you're like me, I'm sure you heard about the Christian persecutions. You heard about Christians fighting in the Colosseum, fighting lions, being persecuted because of their faith. And a lot of you have an attachment to the story because you think that those Christians that were being persecuted are the same as you. But you are wrong. For the Nicene Creed to happen, Emperor Constantine must eliminate older sects of Christianity. Have you ever heard of the Ebionites and the mark? Marcionites. Have you ever heard of them? These are the Christian sects that was persecuted. Right? The Arabianites believed that Jesus was the Messiah, was the Jewish Messiah, and he wasn't divine at birth, but was chosen by God to sacrifice himself to redeem humanity's sins, but was unusually righteous and followed the hundreds of Jewish laws to the letter. The Arabianites believed that one had to be a Jew to be a follower of Jesus. They obeyed Jewish law, ate kosher meals, took ritual baths, prayed facing Jerusalem, and required men to be circumcised. Then you had the Marcionites, rejected Jewish law and Old Testament teachings, believed in two gods, the Jewish God who created a canon of laws that were impossibly difficult for humanity to keep and made them miserable, and two, Christ, an unrelated individual who freed humanity from the grasp of the Jewish God. Now, these are sects of Christianity that were persecuted during the games in Rome. They were considered heretics. They were associated with the mystery school. After Constantine had his Roman bishops synthesize a lot of the astral theology and a lot of the local Babylonian, Egyptian, and I would go as far as to say even Buddhist philosophies into the story in the New Testament. You have astral theology, you have folklores from other lands, you have things from ancient mystery schools that existed at that time, all synthesized into this new ideal of Christianity. These ain't the only ones. You also have the Thomasines. The Thomasines believed that all humans were born with the divine competent, and Jesus taught us how to rediscover our divine self with an emphasis on faith rather following laws. The Thomasines are believed to have been ascetics who explored esoteric ideals, were open to women's participation, rejected hierarchical structures, and allowed personal expression. Why you never heard of them? Oh, there's others. Ascetics. Ascetic sects also arose in early days of Christianity. They made vows of poverty, obedience, and chastity, and headed to the deserts of Egypt to seek solitude and communion with God. Some lived for years in caves on nothing but bread and water. The most famous of these hermits was Paul of Thebes, who reportedly lived 112 years in the 3rd and 4th centuries. The word hermit is derived from the Greek word kermits, meaning desert dweller. The ascetics were also persecuted in Rome because they were considered heretics. What you are learning about are the pre-Christian Christians. Christianity was never, ever supposed to be for the masses. You had to be initiated into mystery schools to be a Christian. Christianity was not for everybody until Emperor Constantine makes it a state-sanctioned religion. Hold on. Let me see, is that it? Oh, look. Now, mind you, Constantine makes it a state-sanctioned religion in 325 AD. But almost 200 years before that, there was something called Montanism. Montanism was an apocalyptic movement in later half of the 2nd century, which is to be traced back to one Montanus of Pyagora. It lived to be the expectation of a speedy outpouring of the Holy Spirit on the church. on which it saw the first manifestation of its own prophets and prophetess. Montanus itself, who began the prophecy either 172 AD, proclaimed that the heavenly Jerusalem would descend near Papusa and Pyarga. Closely associated with him were two women. Oh, okay. Anybody that was in Montanism was also thrown to the lions in the Colosseum. There's also a sect called Manichaeism. Manichaeism was one of the most famous Gnostic sects in late antiquity, incorporating the elements of Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Gnosticism, and Christianity. It emphasized the duality of being between light and darkness and the belief that all light is held in a special place and found with the help of intermediaries such as Jesus, Buddhist, Zoroaster, and Mani. The Manichaeans viewed spirituality as a struggle within the body. They avoided sex and only ate vegetables and believed that the personal fight between good and evil represented a cosmic battle. The movement spread out across the Sassanian Empire and entered the late Roman Empire and counted St. Augustine among its followers. If you were in a Manichaeism, you were also thrown to the lions. Because Emperor Constantine, when he converts to Christianity, must eliminate the mystery schools to have full control over this new religion or Christianity in the form that we understand it. That's a picture of Mani, right? And he's pretty much the head of the Manichaeans. Mm-hmm. You see what's going on here, right? The reason why I had to show Emperor Constantine is because Rome has an empire. When Constantine makes Christianity a state-sanctioned religion, it begins to spread throughout the entire Europe. So for those people that say, oh, Christianity is a white man religion, not exactly. The people in Europe had no choice but to do whatever the emperor said. And the interesting thing about this, only his bishops could interpret the Bible. The majority of Europe was illiterate. Whoever was under the Roman Empire, no matter what God you served at that particular time, you had to come under this form of Christianity that Emperor Constantine is pushing. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. This is a very, very important moment in history with the Council of Nicaea, because that is the reason you are Christian. Now you would say, how's that possible, Ken? How's that possible? The reason why you are Christian is because as Europe became Christian, Europeans began to spread this new culture to everybody else. Now we must fast forward to an event that happened in history that I believe has shaped the way you and I talk, you and I see the world, and it is a very, very, very under talked about event in history. But we had to start with Emperor Constantine first. Because of the Roman Empire, Europe now becomes Christian. So all female deities no longer exist, and all pagans are pretty much found, tortured, and enslaved unless they convert to the religion. Ladies and gentlemen, the event that I'm talking about in history that changed everything is the Doctrine of Discovery. So now we're going to fast forward to 1493. Now remember, the Council of Nicaea, or the Nicene Creed, was 325. Okay? So we're talking about over 1,000 years later. So now this new Christian faith that Constantine pushes is now part of the framework of Europe. The people that are living don't know anything else. They believe that the world has always been like this. And now you have something called the Doctrine of Discovery. What makes the Doctrine of Discovery so important? The papal bull issued by Pope Alexander on May 4th, 1493, played a crucial role in Spanish conquest of the New World. The document supported Spain's strategy to ensure its exclusive rights to the lands discovered by Columbus the previous year. It established a demarcation line 100 leagues west of the Azores and Cape Verde Islands and assigned Spain the exclusive right to acquire territorial possessions and to trade in all lands west of that line. All others were forbidden to approach the lands west of the line without special license from the rulers of Spain. This effectively gave Spain a monopoly on new lands in the New World. So if you ever heard that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, he actually did within the framework of European society. Discovered means the people that he came upon had no legal existence because they were not Christian. This is why it's looked upon as a discovery, because the people that Columbus comes upon, based on the Doctrine of Discovery, technically don't exist. The bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic Church and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread, that the health of souls be cared for, and that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. The Doctrine of Discovery became the basis of all European claims in America, as well as the foundation of the United States Western expansion. At this time, barbarian was the language used to describe other races. There was no such thing as black people or white people. You were called barbarian. The creation of white and black comes later. But still, the root of all of this stuff is Mesopotamia. After the woman falls, things in history start to take an interesting turn. Okay? The Doctrine of Discovery is the reason why so-called black people, Mexican people, even European people think that Adam came first, Eve came second, the woman is supposed to be under the man. What do you mean, Ken? Look at what's written. The bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers. What land did the Spanish take over? Do you see everywhere in the yellow? Now, I want you to understand something very, very, very important. Very important. The place that you see in orange, those people have never heard of the word God in their life. The places that you see in orange, they are polytheistic cultures. The places that you see in orange, there is no creation story where the woman comes out of a person's rib. When Columbus comes upon these lands, they bring the culture with them. Okay. Let's see, did I bring up something? They bring the culture with them, right? Very, very, very important to know this. Let's see something. Not only does Columbus or the Spaniards, the conquistadors, not only do they start carving out the Western world, so do the Portuguese. Why do you think people in Brazil speak Portuguese? When the conquistadors and the people from Portugal come to these places, these people lose their entire way of life. The reason why you think about the wife in the way that you do is because of the Doctrine of Discovery and the fact that Columbus, Cortez, Pizarro, men from Portuguese came and colonized the Western Hemisphere. And they brought you into Phallic worship. This is why you see things through a Euro perspective, a Roman Catholic Church perspective, and a Mesopotamian perspective, but most importantly, a Phallicism perspective. The world did not look the way it does then. What you are looking at is how America was carved up by the French, the British, and the Spanish. Now, what do all of those nations have in common? French, British, and the Spanish. The French, British, and the Spanish are Christians. Though they represent different denominations of Christianity, but they are Christians. The people that are in these regions, guess what they're being called? Black. The French are referring to these people as black. The English are referring to these people as black. The Spanish are referring to these people as black. But how these people are Seminoles. These people are Delawareans. These people are Creek. Right? Here is the creation of black. The Spanish called you negro. So by the time the French and the British got here, the Spanish had already set the tone and reclassified people. When they're reclassifying people, they are also downloading this Mesopotamian, this old world philosophy. The problem is it's from somewhere else. Y'all don't hear me though. Do y'all hear me? It's quiet in the chat. Here's another reason why the reparations conversation won't work. Because America was divided in 3 parts before: Spanish, French, and Britain. So you actually have to talk to the Spanish government too. You also have to talk to the French government too, because the America that you think did not exist then. America had to go to war with these other nations to expand west, to get that land. The Midwest was technically not America. It was French. The West Coast belonged to the Spanish. Huh. So how can you get reparations from America when it was 3 nations? Or how can you get reparations from the American government when America didn't exist then? When the Declaration of Independence was created, California wasn't even part of America. Oregon wasn't even part of America. The people are being reclassified, they're being Christianized, and they're being put in other people's language. So now, wife. He that find a wife findeth a good thing. You know what the problem of the word wife means? The problem with the word wife is it's not indigenous to the people that adhere to the word. And the word wife doesn't mean what you think it means. In European culture, a wife wasn't a good thing. Remember, the woman was removed from the story. Wife, Middle English, with, netter, woman, female, lady, but not especially wife, from Proto-Germanic wiffa, Old Saxon, Old Frisian, Old Norse, Danish, and Swedish, Middle Dutch, Dutch with, Old High German. Apparently felt as inadequate in its basic sense, leading to the more distinctive formation withman, source of woman. Dutch myth, wiffy, wife, now means in slang, girl, babe, having softened from the sense of bitch. The word wife is synonymous with the word bitch. Do you know why? Because to be a wife historically was not special. In fact, marriage in the Anglo-Saxon, in the Germanic, in the Abrahamic faith was a punishment for a woman. When the European came to the Americas, their way to take tribal power from the indigenous was to marry their women. When they married their women, they put them under this new paradigm, a paradigm where the woman loses her freedom. Remember, the woman was removed from the story. In many European cultures, young girls would run away because they did not want to be married. Many girls committed suicide because they did not want to be married, because they understood that from a phallic perspective, marriage was a death sentence for a woman. Wife is not nothing special, ladies. I'm so sorry. But we over here go where knowledge takes us. And what you're looking at is etymology. Wife just means woman. To be a wife in European society was kind of, the word was vulgar. Now, look at this map again. These people are being colonized and dominated. Now, what's interesting is that many of you believe in white supremacy, but you keep the things you like from it. You complain about white supremacy, but you keep the religion, though. And it is a historical fact that was not the religion of people living in this land. That's a fact. But many of you also say that you are indigenous to America. Then why are you worshiping the same religion as Emperor Constantine then? Why are you worshiping a religion where the woman is removed from the story? But you say that you're against white supremacy. Interesting. Another interesting thing. The word God. The word God also does not exist on this land until the Spanish come, until the French come, until the Anglo-Saxon, until the Pilgrims. So many of you say, I believe in God. How do you believe in a word that your ancestors that you claim to love didn't even speak? Y'all don't see the hypocrisy? You say you love your ancestors. You say you're indigenous, yet all of your customs are Mesopotamian. God is a Germanic word. God is nothing more than to summon a spirit to a burial mound. Now, here's another interesting thing about the word God. Remember, I told you that in pagan culture, the female was side by side with the male. Look at the interesting thing. Originally a neuter noun in Germanic, the gender shifted to masculine after the coming of Christianity. Hold on. If it shifted to masculine when the word comes into Christianity, then I need someone in the chat that is super smart and super quick. Matter of fact, I need someone smarter than me. Please help me out. If it shifted into masculine after coming into Christianity, then what was it before? What was the word before? Can somebody help me real quick? The gender shifted to masculine after the coming of Christianity. Can somebody help me and tell me what it was before? If it shifted to masculine, then what was it before? So God is a man. He. Before it was Inanna. It was she. Many of these Christian men, if they found out right now that the word they say use as God was once used in a feminine aspect, they would not be Christian no more. In fact, the only reason why these men are even Christian is because the deity is male, and it gives in the religion promotes man ahead of women. If they woke up tomorrow and it was reversed and the God was back into its regular form and it was she, and there was balance in the home and in the family, and the woman wasn't under a man, they would not follow that religion. They only follow the religion, not for their love of God. No, the religion gives them agency and power over women. Remember, Muhammad burned down all the temples of Alat. Remember, even in the Islamic world, they removed Alat, Al-Manat, and Al-Uzza. Did I tell you that my name is Body Bag Kim? Body Bag Kim. This is the Body Bag family. Over here, we take these old ideals and these old talking points and these information based on people's personalities, ego, and we put that shit in a body bag. In fact, we take that body bag and we put it in a body bag. Now, the word God is Germanic. You know why that's important, y'all? Because when you say you believe in God, I just want you to know you're using a word from here. But I thought you was African, though. I thought you was indigenous to America. I thought you was native to this country. If you're native to this country, why are you using language from here to describe your spirituality? This is where the Germanic tribes were. These are the same people that said wife. These are the same people that said God. But I thought you was indigenous to here. I thought you was African. I thought that you represented the original man and the original woman. If you represent the original man and the original woman, why are you using the language of the Visigoths? You say every day that you believe in God. But the word comes from here. And these people are very, very, very important. Because the Germanic tribes wage a long war on Rome. What attracted the German tribes to Rome? Wealth, land. Here's a list of the Germanic tribes: Huns, Vandals, Lombards, Burgundians, Goths, Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Anglo-Saxon, and Franks. Pause. Okay? So they actually start to assimilate or gain power over Roman territories. The German tribes move into the Roman Empire. Visigoths move into Spain primarily. Ostrogoths took over Italy and area north. Eventually, Western Roman Empire gone. Germanic states ruled by German kings. Romans and Germans merge. New European civilizations emerge, formed by a combination of three elements coming together: Germanic tribes evading old Roman Empire, Roman legacy of culture, government, Christian church, and spread of Christianity simultaneously. Byzantine Empire in the Mediterranean creates its own unique civilization. So now you have this German, these Visigoths mixed in with ancient Roman society, and you get shit like this. God. This is how you can speak a Germanic word, right? But I just want you to know that within the phallic worship and within Rome and Germanic language, the word wife is not a good thing to a woman. How do we know? Let's go to Genesis 3:16. Now, see, you got to understand, after Emperor Constantine makes Christianity a state-sanctioned religion, the religion begins to move through Europe. By the time it gets to England, it goes through another transformation. So you have Norse traditions mixed in with German traditions. This is why the Bible, King James Version, has thoueth, doth. Man, who talks like that? Okay? But remember, the woman fell. Remember, wife is not a good thing. Unto the woman he said, this is Genesis, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception, and thy sorrow shall bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So everybody that thought that the woman was naturally under the man by nature, you're wrong. The woman only comes under a man when he becomes her husband. The man being a woman's husband is based on the fall of the woman within phallic tradition. So she is actually cursed. This is why men say to women, but you ain't got a ring though. You are less of a woman because you ain't married. You don't have a covering. You aren't under the curse. But are you married though? It's interesting because the so-called black man has been under a man, right? And the culture of Europe and Mesopotamia is infused inside of the black man's mind. So the black man is under a man. And then the black man has the nerve to look at the black woman and clown her for not being under a man. But I asked the black man this: didn't you march and protest and run away and fight for your freedom not to be under a man? But then you turn around and shame the woman for not being under a man, when historically the woman being under a man is based on Phallicism and a curse, and it is technically not her natural place. Based on the history that we cover tonight, we see that historically, that is not the original place of the woman to be submissive or under a man. It's not even natural for her to be a wife in religion because marriage doesn't come from the church. Marriage is a pagan tradition in which the woman is not submissive to the man because we need balance in nature. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Why is the husband ruling over thee? Because this is the Abrahamic religion, and it is based on phallic worship, removal and desecration of the female out of the pantheon of gods. Am I simping? I'm a simp. Am I simping? All of you women that are wives or you want to be a wife, you better have a conversation about language first. Because wife was never intended to benefit you. Now, we opened up with an article that said marriage wasn't from the church. Can we find another article that backs that up? The best available evidence suggests that about 4,350, the best available evidence suggests that it's about 4,350 years old, the Institute of Marriage. For thousands of years before that, most anthropologists believe families consisted of loosely organized groups of as many as 30 people, with several male leaders, multiple women shared by them, and children. Now, this is in the Mesopotamian region. As hunter-gatherers settled down into agrarian society, society had a need for a more stable arrangement. The first recorded evidence of marriage ceremonies uniting one woman and one man dates from about 2350 BC in Mesopotamia. Didn't the other article say that too? Mesopotamia. Over the next several hundred years, marriage evolved into a widespread institution embraced by ancient Hebrews, Greeks, and Romans. But back then, marriage had little to do with religion. So if marriage was embraced by the Hebrews, that means Hebrews wasn't teaching it. It doesn't come from them. If it's embraced by the Greeks, it doesn't come from them. If it's embraced by the Romans, it doesn't come from them. Who does it come from? It comes from the pagans. What was it about then? Marriage primary purpose, was to bind women to men and thus guarantee that a man's children were truly his biological heirs. Now, they are speaking when it begins to bleed into other cultures, okay? Because that wasn't the format of pagan societies. So marriage primary purpose, as it begins to bleed into Hebrew, as it begins to bleed into Greek and Roman culture, now it starts to take a different form. Marriage primary purpose, listen to this, was to bind women to men and thus guarantee that a man's children were truly his biological heirs. Through marriage, a woman became a man's property. And y'all really let men shame you because you ain't married? What do you think these podcasts are about? The men want their property back. They are Mesopotamian men. They are men under the thumb of Constantine. They are men under the thumb of the Doctrine of Discovery. Something has control of their mind because they don't believe you as an equal. Through marriage, a woman became a man's property. This is what all the issue is about. The fact that now women are returning to what they were 10,000 years ago, free. Their sexuality wasn't demonized. It was revered. How do we know it was revered? Am I capping? Right? How do we know that women's sexuality was revered? Look at the dates. 35,000 BC, 30,000 BC, 28,000 BC, 26,000 BC, 24,000 BC. You know how old and long 24,000 years is? A great cycle is 25,000 years. We learn over here at Coin Gang that an age is about 2,000 or 2,100 years. 12 of those come up to 25,000. It's like an age is 2150. And you put all of them together and it creates, or it comes to a great cycle. So this Venus of Halophel is 35,000 years old. She was created during a different age. Or that's an entire cycle. 12 ages. Libra, Capricorn, Aquarius, those are ages. That Venus, that first one, is 12 of those. She's naked. Because the woman's nakedness was revered, not demonized. She wasn't called a thought. But through marriage, a woman became a man's property. In the brothel or betrothal ceremony of ancient Greece, a father would hand over his daughter with these words: "I pledge my daughter for the purpose of reproducing legitimate offspring." Listen to that shit. Listen. I pledge my daughter. For what purpose? for producing legitimate offspring. This is phallic worship. He doesn't pledge his daughter for the purpose of her happiness. He doesn't pledge his daughter for the purpose of love. He doesn't pledge his daughter for the purpose of knowledge. He pledges his daughter to this man for the purpose of reproducing legitimate offspring. But y'all making these videos about you need to be more feminine. You need to be more feminine so you can get you a man. That's all it's about. Get you a man. You don't want to die alone. You don't want to be lonely, but you don't even know, beloved, that the position of a wife is an act of historical war on the woman. This is the fall of the woman, because the husband rules over thee and the father rules over thee. I pledge my daughter for the purpose of reproducing legitimate offspring. This is what the father is saying to the other man. He is in control of her womb. That is phallic worship. Worship. That's phallic worship. Among the ancient Hebrews, listen to this, men were free to take several wives. Married Greek and Roman were free to satisfy their sexual urges with concubines, prostitutes, even teenage male lovers, while their wives were required to stay home and tend to the household. If wives fail to produce offspring, their husbands can give them back and marry someone else. So in the Abrahamic religions, in phallic worship, the male is free to explore his entire sexuality. The woman isn't. The male in Greek and Roman culture is even allowed to experience teenage male lovers and prostitutes and concubines, while their wives was required to stay home and tend to the house. Why? Because the husband shall rule over thee. Now, this dynamic that we're reading hasn't even come to America yet. So those indigenous Taíno women, those indigenous Aztec women, those indigenous Seminole women, when these European come, they begin to create the husband and wife dynamic on new land. And now the Aztec woman, the Taíno woman, the Muskogee woman, the Seminole woman, the Choctaw woman, the Creek woman are now wives. And when Europeans marry them, those heiresses, because many of them come from royalty, lose their land. How do you think many Europeans colonized the Americas? They married into their culture. What do you think Pocahontas is? What do you think happens when Pocahontas, who was a child, marries this foreigner? She becomes his property. When did religion begin involved? As the Roman Catholic Church became a powerful institution, The blessings of a priest became a necessary step for marriage to be legally recognized. By the 8th century, marriage was widely accepted in the Catholic Church as a sacrament or a ceremony to bestow God's grace. At the Council of Trent in 1563, the sacramental nature of marriage was written into canon law. Prior to that, marriage was never about religion. So all those that say marriage comes from God, and we know God is a Germanic word, right? But for those that say marriage comes from the divine instruction of the Creator, no, it doesn't. It comes from pagans, and it was adopted by people later that would come back and kill and torture the pagans. Yet, those Abrahamic people still took pagan traditions, as we learned that the wedding ring, it represents the ring of Saturn, and the ring finger was believed to have a vein that went from the finger all the way to the heart. That's why it's on that finger. And that comes from pagan traditions where women is a part of the God pantheon. Listen to this paragraph. Peep this. Peep this, y'all. Peep this. When did love enter the picture? So this is for all those that love. Marriage is about love. Love. First of all, it was never intended for a wife to feel love from her husband. That wasn't the intention. The intention was for her to breed. When did the love enter the picture? Later than you think. For much of human history, couples were brought together for practical reasons, not because they fell in love. In time, of course, many romantic partners came to feel deep mutual love and devotion. But the ideal of romantic love as a motivating force for marriage only goes back as far as the Middle Ages. Naturally, many scholars believe the concept was invented by the French. Y'all hear that? The ideal of romantic love, it is believed to be invented by the French. But for all those that believe in white supremacy and bringing the system down, I bet you won't get rid of romance. You trying to get flued out. Excuse me. You trying to go to restaurants. You want a man to love you. But the concept of romantic love is not even indigenous to Africa, Australia, the Americas, nowhere in the world. It comes from the French. Y'all sure y'all want to do this knowledge thing with me? Are y'all sure? Because your entire world that you created an identity with is not even real. But you'll fight for it, and you'll die for it, and you'll call people names for it, and you will build talking points on top of it, and it ain't even real. The ideal of romantic love as a motivating force for marriage only goes back as the Middle Ages. Naturally, many scholars believe the concept was invented by the French. Its motto was the knight who felt intense love for someone else's wife. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Holy moly. Hold on. Romantic love, the concept, comes from the French, right? And the model of romantic love comes from a knight who felt intense love for someone else's wife, as in the case of Sir Lancelot and King Arthur's wife. Talk about bizarro world. Romantic love, the model that we believe in, comes from a knight having an affair with someone's wife. That's romance, y'all. That's the reason why you have children, because of romance. You have babies because of romance. You will mess up a relationship where you get along with someone because of romance. But romance is French, and it comes from an affair. But do you see what I mean about being absorbed? When people of New France come to the Americas, when the British come to the east coast of the country, when the Spanish plunder and kill off indigenous societies, they're bringing their culture with them. And we have been absorbed into this culture. Every single thing we say and do is based on this culture. European folklore, mythology, a Mesopotamian worldview. We have a Mesopotamian worldview. Let's look at it again. Let's look at it again. When did love enter the picture for marriage? Later than you think. For much of human history, couples were brought together for practical reasons, not because they fell in love. In time, of course, many marriage partners came to feel deep mutual love and devotion. But the ideal of romantic love as a motivating force for marriage only goes back to the Middle Ages. Naturally, many scholars believe that the concept of romantic love was invented by the French. Its model was the knight who felt intense love for someone else's wife, as the case of Sir Lancelot and King Arthur's wife. Interpretation. As we looked at the concept of wife, we see just means woman, right? And the wife was never meant to experience love. She was for breeding purposes. How do we know? Let's go back to the top. A father said, I pledge my daughter. Who's he pledging his daughter to? Another man. For the purpose of producing legitimate offspring. What are they under? Phallic worship. Abrahamic religions. Right? This is when the female falls out of the God pantheon. We already went through it. We seen what it was, right? We see that female deity worship goes back to Sargon the Great, 4,000 years ago. We see that the nakedness of women was always revered. So this ideal of chastity and women being pure, that did not exist 35,000 years ago. That only comes into history from the Abrahamic perspective, but also the Victorian perspective, which we'll get into in a sec. So I want all married people to thank the pagans, because that's where Greece got it from. That's where Rome got it from. That's where the ancient Hebrews got it from. It was never, ever, ever a religious system until the Roman Catholic Church adopts it. And we've seen in the 1500s that it becomes a sacramental law in the 1500s. But the first recorded marriage happens 4,000 years ago by the pagans. And the pagans have a male and deity system. Do we have to go back to the exaltation of Inanna? Look at the date. This is the priestess doing this exaltation. This is the daughter of Sargon the Great, one of the most powerful men in history at that particular time. What's his empire? The Mesopotamian Empire. This is where all this shit comes from. His daughter is exalting Inanna, a goddess, right? But you don't hear her in Abrahamic religions, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You could thank your boy for that, Constantine. It's interesting, though. The male will only love you if you're under the Abrahamic shit, right? Not on balance, as long as he maintains control. But we see historically, not my opinion, historically, it was not like that. It begins to be like that, right? With the Doctrine of Discovery, with the fall of the woman, right? For those that claim indigenous history in America, when Europeans begin to come in contact with the indigenous here, they begin to convert them into this new ideology. And in this ideology, the woman is under the man. But in those cultures, in those native cultures, nature is in harmony and balance. Nobody is under nobody. In native cultures, even patriarchal native cultures, the woman wasn't made to submit. Even in patriarchal native cultures, the submission shit only happens with the rise of the Abrahamic religions. Jesuits begin to go out to the rest of the world, and they are astounded that the rest of the world, the men live in harmony with the women, and they are bugged out. Why is he not ruling over her? Book of Genesis. Unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and conception, and thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. The problem with this is it does not exist in the Americas until Spanish Empire. I'm walking this shit down. These dudes, white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy. But the framework of how we get married is white supremacy. The deity system is white supremacy. A woman submitting is white supremacy. That is not ancient history. That does not exist in prehistory. That does not exist in Australia. That does not exist in Brazil until the Portuguese. That does not exist in the Americas until the Portuguese. Tell these boys bring their libraries with them. Tell these boys bring anthropology with them. Tell these boys bring those figurines with them. That's 35,000 years old. These boys don't even understand the system that they under of phallic worship. And how did it got like that? This is why you do it for the bros. This is why you dudes keep talking about men this, men that. Because of phallic worship. You are part of the phallic cult. That's why you serve a male deity. You believe in a male devil, a male Christ. Everything is male. Why? That's the phallic. Right? If you're good in the chat, go ahead and press 1. What's the purpose of this? The purpose of this is for our sons and our daughters. Because at this rate, these children are going to grow up and hate each other. It's important for our sons and our daughters to know that the woman has played a vital part in history. It's important for our sons and daughters to know that the woman has a place in history, and it wasn't from Eve's original sin. It's important for us to know that sexuality is not bad, right? Our babies have to know the truth. Forget these old people stuck in this world they're trying to keep alive. These babies have to know the truth, especially your daughters. Your daughters have to know there was a history where they was not under a man, and they don't come under a man until the fall in Abrahamic faith. But all you got to do is tell them about the God in Inanna, and we find out, woo, she's a beast. Because she was many things to many people. She held many titles. As the goddess of the heavenly upper world, she's known as the Lady of Heaven, the Queen of Heaven, the Ruler of Heaven, the Goddess of the Moon, the Shining One, the Torch of Heaven and Earth, the Mother of all deities, the Leader of Hosts. And you know what's dope about this? This ain't my opinion. That's what's fire about this. This is actual, real history. That's what's fire about this, right? And we can see that Inanna is a real person because the poet Inanna, the daughter of Sargon, look at her noble works, the exaltation of Inanna. It's a hymn. This right here is a hymn. Look at the date on it. 2240 BC. This is 2,000 years before the ideal of Jesus. 2,000 years. And you have a female deity being elevated and revered in an empire. The Mesopotamian Empire, where Sargon the Great rules. These dudes claim to love the woman. They don't love the woman. They don't love the woman. They only love you to control, right? You come in with this ideals of how you think the world is supposed to be. Pick a side. Do you got a problem with so-called white supremacy or not? Then why are you in Germanic concepts? The word God comes from there. Uh-oh. For the people that just came, ladies and gentlemen, what does the second paragraph say about the word God when we look at etymology? You know what's good about etymology? This ain't my opinion neither. What is etymology again, ladies and gentlemen? The origin of the word. What is the word God again? Originally a neuter noun in Germanic. The gender shifted to masculine after coming of Christianity. It was female before that. And even in the Arabian world, there were female deities. And Muhammad destroys all the temples. No more Alat, no more Al-Manat, no more Al-Zuzah. But I'm the simp. I'm the panderer. What's more pandering than pandering to phallic worship? What's more pandering than pandering to the bros? What's more pandering than a group of men speaking of men in general as if they are all friends? Men this, men that. I'm not being loyal to the phallic. That ain't right and exact. That ain't right and exact. That's not right and exact. That's not what paleontology says. That's not what anthropology says. That's not what archaeology says. That's not what the museums say. That's what Kevin Samuel says. That's what Coach Greg Adams says. That's what the Manosphere says. But none of them ever bring their Bible. None of them ever bring, not the Bible. Of course they bring the Bible, right? Of course they do, right? But they don't tell you that the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 disciples is astrotheology. They don't tell you that when it talks about God having human emotions, that's anthropomorphism. Nah, they just go to the book of Genesis. Submit, right? The husband shall rule over thee. Ain't that what it said? The husband shall rule. So with Europe coming to America, guess what they bring with them? Their concepts. Guess what they bring with them, y'all? Coverture. This is interesting. When men talk about there's no incentive to get married now, they're talking about a period where the woman had no choice. This is what men want to go back to? You want to be married to women that had no choice, where they had to be with you for their survival? Let's look at coverture. Articulated. Hold on, we got a storm coming. Severe weather. Okay, let me finish up quick. Articulated by English jurist Sir William Blackstone in his commentaries of Law of England, and we're still under some of this shit. Coverture established women's civil status in common law and became the basis for married women's legal status in the United States. Coverture defined a married woman's legal status as suspended and incorporated into her husband's. In marriage, the man and woman became one, and the law recognized only the husband's existence. A civil death that left married women economically and legally dependent on men. They call it a civil death. But you got these niggas, marriage. Ask them why. Come on, man. This is not about the elevation of woman. It ain't about that. It's about control. Keep it a buck. This isn't me saying this. In marriage, a man and woman became one, and the law only recognized the husband existence. But these dudes want to, my grandma was married. My great-grandma was married. They ain't had no choice. The law wasn't on their side. Their father put them in that position many a times, bartering with the male. That's because of phallic worship. That's because of a fall. But you brag about that? You don't fuck with women like that. Y'all tolerate women. You don't rock with them like that. You don't teach them the real. You ain't never tell them about coverture. That coverture defined a married woman's legal status. This is from Blackstone's commentaries of Laws of England, 1765 to 1769. This person is telling you how it was, and they're telling you that Europeans brought that culture here. But these dudes love you though. I love women. Niggas on my platform trying to tell me what the real is, but they never bring their library with them. Never. What are you talking about? I don't speak in generalization. I come with receipts. Back in the day. That's all these dudes talk about is back in the day. Yeah, back in the day, power trickled down to you. You didn't get that. You didn't earn that. You didn't earn a woman's submission. She had to do that. And the problem is they don't got to do it now. And that's the issue. Because resources ran through the mail, because powerful people set it up like that. Not because it came from some divine being in the cosmos. That came from guys. And a Victorian age. We'll get into that in a second. Coverture. By marriage, the husband and wife are one person in law. That is, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage, or at least incorporated and consolidated into that of the husband, under whose wing, protection, and cover she performs everything. But they'll diss the woman for not being married. At the same time, the men don't even know how it got like this. So they just on autopilot too. But what they're asking for was a period when women didn't have a choice of the men they were with. They had to do it, even if they didn't get along with the guy. Why would you as a man want to go back to that? Coverture. A woman listen to this. Listen. In coverture, a grown woman was presumed to be a minor person so long as she stayed in the household of a male relative, brother, or uncle. Come on, man. People are inheriting that. A grown woman was considered a minor as long as she lived in the household with a male relative. This is the world that the men want to go back to. Always taught my grandmother, you don't know shit. This is the world your great grandmom lived in. Upon marriage, a woman's legal rights were subsumed by those of her husband. Tough. Rules of coverture. It prohibited women from, own property, all wages, any inherited wealth became the husband's. The woman couldn't make contracts, write wills, sue, or be sued in court. A woman couldn't refuse sexual relations with her husbands. Legal work excluded husbands. A woman couldn't even obtain custody of children in case of divorce. Peep this, yo. A woman under coverture is not responsible for her action. The husband had responsibility for her conduct, duty to reprimand her physically, chastisement. But y'all talking about marriage. And back in the day, marriage. Keep it real about back in the day marriage, brothers. What are you talking about? Keep it real about back in the day marriage. Coverture. A woman was prohibited from owning property. I'm talking, this is America. A woman was prohibited from own property, all wages, Any inherited wealth became the husband's. The woman couldn't make contracts, write wills, sue or be sued in court. Refusal of sexual relations with her husband. I know y'all see the ref. He can legally R-word her. And ain't that the conversation we having now on these podcasts? Well, men need sex. Men need sex. Men need sex. Ain't that what they saying? You can't withhold sex from a man. Oh my God, yo, y'all don't even know what y'all saying. But I'm the panderer. They call me the simp. But they want to go back to coverture. But I'm the panderer. But these dudes sit up here and talk about men all day. Do it for the bros. You know why? Because of, what did we learn? Phallic worship. The sex worship of the ancients. The masculine cross. These men have a loyalty to each other based on the phallic. If y'all good in the chat, press 1. If you're good in the chat, press 1. We will go wherever knowledge takes us, right? I showed this woman before. Anybody know who this is? Because we seem to think. I had a brother tell me on my page that a woman was meant to be in the house. Where did he get that from? He thought that that was the natural way of the woman. He didn't understand that our entire behavior comes from the mind of other people telling us what it is. This is Queen Victoria, right? Queen Victoria, Queen of the United Kingdom from 1837 to 1901. Why is she significant? The Victorian age. The Victorian age spanning from 1830 to 1901 was the period of dramatic change in the world over, and especially in England, with the rapid extension of colonialism through large portions of Africa, Asia, and the West Indies, making England a preeminent center of world power and relocating the perceived center of Western civilization from Paris to London. Victorian society regarded seduced or adulterous women as fallen, but not their male partners. You see? Do you see? Listen to this. Victorian society regarded seduced or adulterous women as fallen, but not their male partners. You see the phallic worship? So when women in all cultures were shamed for having sex, that ain't true. That's historically wrong. You got to be specific. Victorian society did not want a strong authority in their central government, but fathers in the middle-class households were the power figures in fact and fiction. Women were subject to male authority and were expected to make their homes comfortable for their husbands. Women who did not marry had few options, and men sometimes postponed marriage due to the fact they could not afford it. Prudery and social order were intended to control the immorality and sexual excesses that Victorians associated with chaos. That's one of the reasons why we look at women. It's nasty. She's not supposed to do that. Man, that comes from a queen. But it's natural, though. Look, man, you probably can't read this. It's probably too small. But you're looking at the doctrine of separate spheres. You see, you have men on one side, women on the other. This is all man-made. So anybody talking about femininity, masculinity, we created that shit. We said what masculine was, and we said what feminine was, but the women had no say-so in the matter. So on the left, men, intellectual, strong, competent, aggressive, cold-hearted, dispassionate, enterprising. Business, industry, agriculture, education, government, politics. On the right side, women, emotional, passionate, uncontrolled, childish, hysterical, simple, nurturing, spiritual, religious, pious, home, Sunday school, children, childcare, housekeeping. This is called the doctrine of spheres. It's man-made. It is not natural. Normal is not natural. Just because something been a certain way for a long time does not mean it's natural. It's normal. The women have no say-so in the separation of spheres. And it's interesting that Queen Victoria chooses to go that route. So it's very hard, ladies, for you to say, oh, the man ain't protecting me. Neither did Queen Victoria. She put you in a jammed up spot. The ideals from her made your sexuality look dirty, made your expression look dirty. She's one of the reasons in the modern world we have these gender dynamics, because people from the Europe brought that culture to the Americas. So to be fair, any woman saying that the men are not protecting you, well, so neither are your gatekeeper women, though. Sorry. Separation of spheres. Sorry. It says, in the early 19th century, the United States underwent massive economic and social change. Although overall birth rate declined from about 7 children per family in the 1800s to 5 at mid-century, immigration helped to dramatically increase population, causing it to nearly double every 20 years. 5 million immigrants, primarily from Ireland and Germany, became new consumers and workers for the growing nation. At the same time, Americas moved westward. They built canals, steamboats, and railroads to open up new areas of the continent, link various regions, and allow farmers and manufacturers to specialize and produce for a growing market. These changes encouraged industrialization, the use of machinery, wage labor, and the factory system. Other transformations occurred as well. A second Great Awakening emphasized individual responsibility, personal salvation, and societal reform, as more states adopted white manhood suffrage. As more states adopted white manhood suffrage, politics became increasingly democratized. These extensive changes had consequences on American women. White middle-class, native-born families abandoned home-based production units. Instead, men went out to work in factories, warehouses, stores, and offices. The home and family became the middle-class woman's domain. The Industrial Revolution, however, affected females of other classes and races differently. Working class and farm women sought employment in the growing factories. The demand for cotton by New England and British textile manufacturers also had implications for the slave women who labored with their families in the plantation fields of the South. Didn't I say the other day that the black woman always worked? No, she didn't. No, she didn't. Was y'all on my live when I said, man, a black woman always worked? The slave woman who labored with their families in the plantation fields of the South. Slave families from the economically stagnant Upper South became extremely vulnerable to separation as masters sold them to planters in cotton-producing areas of the Lower South. The profitability of cotton and the need for slave labor to produce it made emancipation increasingly less likely. Point is, you're looking at the creation of what we call masculine and feminine. My next thing that I'm going to read is going to be the death blow. This is going to be a little tough because I'm being told that women's sexuality forever has been shamed, right? Since the beginning of time. I'm being told that this is the natural state of things, the way it is. Why don't we ever look at indigenous natives? Why don't we say, many of us say that we're from here, but how come we don't have none of their customs? Let's look at the family values, hierarchies, and beliefs of those that we call Native American. Shall we? Since we say that we are from America, right? Well, let's see. Community structure. Each tribe is different, but they all have chiefs, elders, hunters, and healers. The chief was the head leader of the tribe. The role of the chief was traded based on who was needed to lead at that time. Hunters, healers, spiritual elders, great speakers, or thinkers each held specific gifts that were needed for the chief role because of what the tribe was going through at that time. Elders were the wise spiritual leaders of the tribe. They passed down their wisdom to the next generation by word to mouth. Not much was written down. Hunters and warriors protected and provided food for the tribe. Healers helped the injured and sick members of the tribe. Did you hear anything about men? Because you know hunters and warriors could be women too, right? In indigenous culture. But let's keep on because we say that we're from America, right? We say that female sexuality, women being submissive, it always been like that. But we never ask the indigenous. Family structure. The family structure of Native American people is very different from our own. For Native Americans, family went beyond parents and siblings. Interesting. Their families were very open and formed, what is called an extended family. In these extended families were many other households that came together to form a small community within their tribe. Imagine living with your parents, siblings, grandparents, uncles, and aunts, cousins, and more. That would be an extended family. Family structures are different depending on the tribe. Some were matriarchal while others were patriarchal. Native American families valued responsibility. Having an extended family allowed each person to be responsible for something. In some tribes, a second set of parents were chosen for an infant at birth. These unrelated people worked together to raise that child. If one person was unable to take care of that child, there were others to help and make sure that the family succeeded. Oh, it takes a village. Interesting. Women's role in the tribe. Many people think that Native American women did not have a big role in the Native American community, but the truth is that women played a very important role in the lives of Native Americans. Some of the roles they played within the tribe included builders, warriors, farmers, craftsmen. I had a dude the other day tell me, yeah, man, it's the job of the man to make the woman not experience what the man experiences. What? Negro, please. Some of the roles in the tribe included builders, warriors, farmers, craftswomen. What are you talking about? That's your bad if you think women aren't warriors. That's your bad if you think women have just been stuck in the house. That's your bad. And it's non-cipher. Step your book game up. Step your anthropology up. Don't read things to confirm your confirmation bias. Seek true understanding. But I'm the panderer, though. Women made tools and weapons out of animal bone. Women were also in charge of maintaining the home, which included fixing the roof if needed repairs and even building a new one if it was needed. Hold on. Yeah, it's your job to be in your femininity. Man, these women were building roofs. The women in Native American tribes often helped the men hunt buffalo. When the buffalo were hunted, the women were responsible for skinning, cutting, and cooking the animal. They also gathered firewood, cooked, and fixed clothing and shoes. Okay. The role of the man in the tribe. It is important to note that not every Native American tribe is exactly the same. Not all men in Native American tribes have the same role. In many tribes of the northern Indians, men were responsible for raiding and hunting. They were the protectors of the land and went to war if they needed to. Cherokee men were responsible for clearing the land in order to plant the fields to grow vegetables. Since Native Americans did not like to waste the earth's resources, the men would use the trees to make canoes, homes, and pole fences for around the village. Many men hunted and fished for their family. Many times upon marriage, peep this, the man would move into the woman's family. Uh-oh. Hold on. Many times upon marriage, the man would move in with the woman's family. Uh-oh. See, we got a problem. Because y'all been telling us the women to go with the men and do. Are you serious? Are you sure? Or are you under Mesopotamian ideology? Men in these tribes understood that women were the source of life, so they treated them with respect and care. Both men and women were equally crucial to the functioning and survival of their societies. So when are all you people claiming to be indigenous to America, right, gonna go back to your ancient way of life? You talk that white supremacy shit. You talk that you from America shit. When you gonna go back to your ancient way of life? Y'all capping. It's performative at best. Marriage and children. Polygyny. It's gonna get interesting. Marriage. The marriage of one man, polygyny, the marriage of one man to more than one woman at the same time was fairly common throughout the Native American world, or throughout Native America, North America, excuse me. In some cases, a man would marry sisters, a practice that anthropologists call sorial polygyny. In general, sisters tended to get along better than unrelated co-wives, as many sisters usually did not fight. Uh-oh. Yikes. Former Navajo chairman Peter McDonald explains Navajo polygyny this way. A man would marry a woman, then work hard for his family. If she had a sister who was not married, and if the man proved to be caring, a good provider, and a good husband, he would be gifted with his wife's sister, marrying her as well. Among many of the tribes, a widow often married her deceased husband's brother, a practice anthropologists call liverite. When a man's wife died, he would often marry one of her sisters. A practice was anthropologists call soriate. Among many of the tribes, wife exchange was practiced. One man might become infatuated with the wife of another and propose an exchange. Hold on. But I thought women sleeping around was looked down upon throughout the entire world. That's what y'all say. What about purity? What about chastity? Let me read this again. In many of the tribes, wife exchange was practiced. One man might become infatuated with the wife of another and propose an exchange. If this was agreeable, the two men would exchange wives from time to time. Among the Lakota Sioux, for example, two men who have pledged devotion to each other may express this relationship by marrying sisters and exchanging wives on certain occasions. Y'all don't want no smoke with this? But you from America, though. This is the complicated history of the wife. It's not what you think. Among the Pawnee, listen to this, brothers sometimes shared wives. It is not uncommon for two or more brothers to set up a joint household, sharing their wives and their property. If you hear, press 1. Let me know you active. Press 1, please. Polyandry. The marriage of one woman to more than one man at the same time was found among many of the tribes. This practice was not recognized by Europeans, including many ethnographers, as it seemed so alien to them. If you're still here, please press 1. Polyandry, the marriage of one woman to more than one man at the same time, was found among many of the tribes. Interesting. Interesting. And do you know why we don't recognize it? Because it wasn't recognized by Europeans. You can never get rid of white supremacy because you are white. You sure your peoples was here? But you won't pick up none of these ancient traditions and these customs, though. Are you sure that your peoples are from America? Are you sure? Because in America, marriage of one woman to more than one man at the same time was found among many tribes. The practice was not often recognized by Europeans, including many ethnographers, as it seemed so alien to them. The Pawnee, for example, practiced a form of temporary polyandry. When a boy reached puberty, his mother's brother's wife would take charge of him and initiate him into sex. He would continue having sex with her until he married. For a period of 4 or 5 years, the young man, and perhaps his brothers as well, would be a junior husband for this woman, creating a temporary state of polyandry. She was sleeping with the entire brothers. Among the Comanche, for example, when a man died, his wife would become the wife of his brother. Anticipating this practice, a man would allow his brothers to have sexual access to his wife. So much for thought, huh? See, none of that existed until Europeans come with that religion. Our entire mating dynamic, we see the world through a European worldview. Wife, husband, all that. Are we from America or not? Because if we are, we didn't deal with private property. So we didn't deal with the ownership of each other. There was no concept of sharing a man or sharing a woman because nobody belonged to nobody. Pete, for a period of 4 or 5 years, the young man, and perhaps his brothers as well, would be junior husbands for this woman, create a temporary state of polyandry. Among the Comanche, for example, when a man died, his wife will become the wife of his brother. Anticipating this practice, a man would allow his brothers to have sexual access to his wife. This was seen as symbolic of the brotherhood bond. I guess these are all simps, huh? In Indian cultures, marriage was neither religious nor civil. There was usually no religious ceremony involved, only a public recognition of the fact of the marriage. In most cases, there was no formal ceremony. The couple simply started living together. In most native cultures, nearly all adults were married, yet marriage was not seen as permanent. It was recognized that people would be together in a married state for a while and then separate. Divorce was accomplished easily since the couple did not own property in common. Each partner simply picked up his or her personal property and left. Y'all don't want to get rid of no white supremacy. Y'all capping. You love this shit. You don't give a damn about the man and woman, or because if you did, you would go back to your ancient forms of living. But you can't have a man if you don't control him. You can't have a woman if you don't control her. She has to be your private property. He has to be your property. Divorce was neither civil nor religious concern. This was a private matter among the people involved. Again, listen to this. The Christian missionaries were shocked by the ease with which Indian couples divorce. They were also offended by the ideal that divorce could be easily initiated by the woman. Why? Because the woman was not secondary in the ancient world. She only becomes secondary with the rise of phallic worship, the rise of the Abraham religion, the rise of the doctrine of separate spheres, and now the rise of podcasts. Body bag. Any conversation about the woman being submissive is historically wrong, and it is a lie. That is not the woman's natural state. It is not the natural state in ancient America. It is not the natural state in ancient Australia. It is not the natural state in ancient South America. It only becomes the way of life with the rise of Mesopotamian psychology. We put the body bag in the body bag. Who else can pull up with a shirt like this and go in? Shout out to the real researchers. Shout out to the men and women that seek knowledge over personality. Shout out to the men and women that will go anywhere that knowledge takes them. Shout out to the men and women that want to be exact. Peace to the nation of gods and earths, right? Peace to the true and living. Peace to the bookworms. Peace to everybody doing the work. Peace to everybody out there with that out-the-box philosophy. We have to give the children another outlook and put the truth on the table, even if the truth compromises our position. Starting to thunder, y'all. If you enjoyed yourself, press 1. If you got something from this, press 1. Right? Like and share the video. And I just want to let you know that somebody tried to convince me recently that I was from Mesopotamia. I'm like, nah, man, I'm from here. They tried to convince me that the woman historically was under the man. And I'm like, nah, that's not true. They tried to convince me that the woman was naturally submissive, right? And I said, that's not true. And they asked me, how did I know? I said, because I'm a nigga with waves, man. What you think this is? Take care of yourself. For real. And each other. My name is Ken Billions. And this